one short-term contract to another and hope to achieve minimum stability one day. And while still others join the queues at soup kitchens, a healthy number of citizens have made a killing on the crisis. According to the charity group Oxfam, over the past 10 years, the number of billionaires in the world has doubled. And they are richer than 60% of the rest of the global population. The figures which Oxfam got from the business magazine Forbes and the Swiss bank Credit Suisse astound. 2,153 billionaires now have more wealth than 4.6 billion people who are the poorest on the planet. Oxfam illustrates how these numbers work. For instance, just 22 men, the richest, have more wealth than all of the women in the continent of Africa. The report also provides suggestions for solutions. Oxfam says if the world's richest 1% paid just 0.5% extra tax on their wealth for 10 years, it would equal the investment needed to create 117 million new jobs in health and education and in elderly and child care. Oxfam published its annual report on inequality just before the World Economic Forum opens on Tuesday in the Swiss ski resort of Davos. At Davos is celebrating its 50th year this week as it aims to attract some 3,000 of the world's wealthiest and most powerful people to spend 4 days talking shop. National leaders, chief executives, thinkers, and celebrities will gather at the ski resort while at a guarded distance, demonstrators protest against inequality and inaction over climate change. Anticipating that criticism, the World Economic Forum announced this year's theme: Stakeholders for a Cohesive and Sustainable World. In business language, stakeholders refers to a larger group of people directly affected by a corporation than its stockholders. Stakeholders include employees and customers, but they are only peripherally involved in the corporation's purpose and mission, which is to, quote, create value for its stockholders, who are in effect investors expecting a return on their investment. Davos says the focus of this year's gathering will be on renewing the concept of stakeholder capitalism to overcome income inequality, societal division, and the climate crisis. One of the Davos discussion sessions is entitled Averting a Climate Apocalypse. Scientists have been sounding the alarm over global warming for decades, but investors have only begun to pay attention in the past few years. In November, the UN's panel of climate scientists reported that CO2 emissions have risen an average of 1.5% each year over the past decade, and that even after the signing of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. If the present trajectory continues, the world is projected to warm by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, with, quote, catastrophic effects on human civilization. The founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, said,
"We are faced with an urgency. We see a window for action closing, and that's the reason why we put so much emphasis on the issue of climate during this 50th anniversary."
The World Economic Forum released its own report based on the science, saying that without a meaningful reduction in emissions in the next 5 years, the ability to act will become increasingly lost, resulting in damage that could become irreversible. The WEF also notes that only 67 countries, none of them among the top 5 emitters, have committed to the goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions, and that most countries with this commitment have not enacted sufficiently robust policies to attain the emissions reductions required. So, the WEF wants to encourage its attendees to take unilateral action on their own. However, as the WEF report admits, there is little or no pressure from investor finance, which is the chief driver of corporate decision-making, for action on emissions. It states, in one-on-one interviews, CEOs say the pressure to deliver short-term returns far exceeds any demands for long-term decarbonization. For the first time in its history, the Edelman Trust Barometer, an American communications and public survey company, has polled people about their opinions on capitalism. The company noted a growing awareness of social and economic inequality among the people it surveyed over the past 20 years. So this year, it asked the over 34,000 people in 28 countries, from Western liberal democracies like the U.S. and France to those based on a different model, such as China and Russia, whether they agreed or disagreed with the statement, capitalism as it exists today does more harm than good in the world. A majority, 56%, agreed capitalism does more harm than good. On a national level, lack of trust in capitalism was highest in Thailand and in India, on 75 and 74% respectively, with France close behind on 69%. Majorities prevailed in other Asian, European, Gulf, African, and Latin American countries. Only in Australia, Canada, the United States, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Japan did majorities disagree with the assertion that capitalism currently did more harm than good. The survey also noted a class division, with the rich and college-educated much more likely to have faith in how things are currently being run. And we continue with another report with numbers and not unrelated. More than 150 of those billionaires on the Forbes list made their money directly from the energy industry, oil, gas, coal, pipelines, or from mining. However, just about every source of major wealth entails a heavy CO2 footprint. Retail. Jeff Bezos, the founder of the online retail company Amazon, is at the top of the Forbes billionaire list. In September, Bloomberg reported that Amazon.com contributed more greenhouse gas emissions last year than several big competitors in retail, logistics, and technology, such